Hashtag the colony takeover. The morning sun cast long shadows across the agricultural domes of New Harmony as Saracen finished a routine inspection of the hydroponic systems. The human colony on Kepler 442b had been thriving for 3 years, turning the once barren planet into a productive agricultural hub. Sarah wiped sweat from her brow, admiring the rows of earth vegetables growing under the artificial atmosphere. Another successful harvest cycle, she murmured to herself, making notes on her tablet. The colony of 1,200 souls had exceeded all production expectations. They were finally becoming self-sufficient, no longer dependent on supplies shipped from Earth. The peaceful morning shattered when alarms began blaring throughout the settlement. Sarah's tablet buzzed with an emergency message from Colony Administrator Jackson. All civilians report to designated safe zones immediately. This is not a drill. Sarah's heart raced as she hurried toward the central hub. Through the transparent aluminum dome, she could see massive ships descending through the atmosphere. They were unlike any human vessel she had ever seen, sleek, angular craft that seemed to bend light around their hulls. The ships moved with predatory grace, their weapons systems clearly visible even from a distance. In the colony's command center, Administrator Jackson stood before a wall of screens showing the approaching fleet. His weathered face was grim as he addressed the gathered department heads. "We've received a transmission from the lead vessel. They're calling themselves the Zephyrian Collective, and they're claiming this planet as their territory." Dr. Martinez, the colony's xenobiologist, adjusted her glasses nervously. "Sir, we've had no previous contact with this species. Our deep space monitoring systems showed no signs of intelligent life in this sector." "Apparently, we were wrong," Jackson replied. "They're demanding our immediate surrender and evacuation. They claim this world belongs to them by right of prior discovery, whatever that means." Sarah felt her stomach drop. "What about Earth Command? Can they send help?" Jackson's expression darkened further. "The nearest Earth fleet is 6 months away. We're on our own." The largest of the alien ships settled into a hover pattern directly above the main settlement. Its shadow engulfed the central plaza where hundreds of colonists had gathered, looking up in a mixture of fear and defiance. The ship's hull was a dark metallic blue that seemed to absorb light, making it appear like a void against the morning sky. Through the colony's communication systems, a voice spoke in perfect English, though with an unsettling harmonic quality that made it sound like multiple voices speaking in unison. "Humans of this world, you have established your presence on a planet that belongs to the Zephyrian Collective. We have observed your activities for the past solar cycle and have determined that this world's resources are required for our expansion." Administrator Jackson activated the main communication array. "This is Administrator Jackson of New Harmony Colony. We established this settlement legally under the Terran Colonial Charter. We've detected no prior claims or inhabitants on this world." The alien response came swiftly. "Your primitive understanding of territorial rights is irrelevant. We do not recognize your claims. You will evacuate within 3 planetary rotations, or we will remove you by force. We are a superior species with technology far beyond your comprehension. Resistance is futile and will only result in unnecessary casualties." In a hydroponic facility, Sarah watched the exchange on a portable screen while other civilians huddled around. The colonists' faces showed a mixture of fear, anger, and determination. These people had left everything behind on Earth to build new lives on this world. Many had invested their life savings and years of preparation for this opportunity. "They can't just take our home," whispered Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who ran the colony's school. "My grandchildren were born here. This is their world now." Sarah nodded grimly. Like many colonists, she had burned her bridges on Earth. There was nothing to return to, even if they wanted to. The Zephyrians clearly expected the humans to fold immediately, assuming that any species inferior enough to require slow travel between stars would be easy to intimidate. But they didn't understand humans. As the alien ships maintained their threatening positions above the colony, something began to stir in the settlement below. It wasn't panic or despair, as the Zephyrians might have expected. Instead, it was something far more dangerous to an overconfident invader: quiet, determined resistance. The colonists of New Harmony were about to show these aliens that humans didn't surrender their homes without a fight. Hashtag the unexpected response. Staff Sergeant Marcus Torres had been enjoying his mandatory leave when the alarm started. As the colony's only active military personnel, a leftover from the original survey mission, he had been tasked with training a small militia and maintaining the settlement's modest defense systems. Nobody expected they would ever need them. Torres rushed to the armory, his mind already calculating their limited options. The colony had basic defensive barriers, a few outdated plasma rifles, and some mining explosives. Against ships that size, they might as well throw rocks. But Torres had learned something important during his years serving in Earth's outer colonies. Sometimes the biggest threats came from underestimating your opponents. In the command center, Administrator Jackson was frantically trying to reach Earth Command through quantum relay, but the alien ships were jamming all communications beyond the planet's atmosphere. The Zephyrians clearly wanted to handle this situation without outside interference. Sergeant Torres, Jackson called out as the soldier entered. What are our defensive capabilities? Torres studied the tactical display showing the alien fleet positions. 12 ships total, with a massive command vessel directly overhead. Sir, conventional resistance would be suicide. But there might be another way. Dr. Martinez looked up from her console, where she was analyzing scanner readings from the alien ships. Their technology is definitely more advanced than ours, but I'm detecting some interesting energy signatures. Their ships seem to rely heavily on anti-grav systems and energy barriers rather than physical armor. Torres nodded thoughtfully. That matches their approach. They're expecting us to either surrender immediately or put up a token resistance they can easily crush. They haven't prepared for anything else. What are you thinking, Sergeant? Jackson asked. With respect, sir, I think we're looking at this the wrong way. These aliens have probably conquered dozens of worlds. They have a standard procedure: show overwhelming force, demand surrender, and clean up any resistance with minimal effort. They're not prepared for humans. Sarah entered the command center. Having left her civilian post to volunteer, however, she could. What makes humans different? Torres smiled grimly. Ma'am, they've clearly studied our technology and probably our communications, but I doubt they understand our psychology. They think because we're technologically inferior, we'll behave predictably. But humans don't work that way. Outside, the Zephyrian commander, Zelarn, observed the human settlement from his ship's bridge. His species had conquered 17 worlds in this sector alone, and the process was always identical. Show strength, demand submission, and remove any resistance. The humans had already wasted half a rotation without responding to their ultimatum. Zelarn's tactical officer, a junior Zephyrian named Vorth, reviewed the human data. Commander, their weapons are primitive projectile and basic energy systems. Their ships are incapable of faster-than-light travel without massive generation ships. They pose no threat. Then, why haven't they surrendered? Zelarn wondered aloud. In his experience, inferior species recognized hopeless situations quickly. Self-preservation was a universal constant. The answer came through an unexpected channel. Instead of using the main communication array, a signal came from a small transmitter in one of the agricultural domes. The voice was calm, measured, and belonged to the human soldier they had identified in their scans. Zephyrian vessels, this is Staff Sergeant Marcus Torres of the New Harmony Colony Defense Force. I'm speaking for the colonists of this settlement. Zelarn activated his response system. Human soldier, you will inform your leaders that our patience is limited. Surrender now, and your people will be relocated safely. There was a pause before Torres responded, and when he did, his tone had changed completely. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Commander. We're not surrendering. We're not evacuating. This is our home now, and you're trespassing. Zelarn's mandibles clicked in amusement. Human, you're clearly suffering from some form of mental defect. Observe our fleet. Observe your primitive defenses. Calculate your chances of survival. I have, sir. And I've reached an interesting conclusion. You have superior technology, superior firepower, and superior numbers. In any conventional engagement, you would destroy us in minutes. Then, you'll surrender. Torres' next words sent a chill through the Zephyrian bridge crew. No, sir. We will not. Because humans don't fight conventional wars when conventional wars can't be won. We fight the war we can win. Zelarn's confidence wavered slightly. Explain. Simple, Commander. You want this planet intact for your expansion, correct? That means you can't just glass the surface from orbit. You need to come down here and remove us personally. And when you do, you're going to discover why humans have a saying. Home is where you make your stand. Dr. Martinez was monitoring the alien communications and noticed something interesting. The energy readings from their ships were fluctuating. Sergeant, I think your little speech rattled them. Their formation is tightening. Torres nodded. Good. Phase 1 complete. Let them think about what it means to fight house to house against humans who have nothing left to lose. The psychological warfare had begun. Hashtag the human factor commander Zelarn paced his bridge, his elongated limbs moving with agitated grace. The human soldier's words had created an uncomfortable sensation he rarely experienced: uncertainty. In 300 cycles of conquest, no species had ever responded with such casual defiance to overwhelming odds. Tactical analysis, he demanded from his crew. Vorth consulted his displays. Commander, the humans have approximately 400 adult males of combat age, perhaps 200 more, who could serve support roles. Their weapons are primitive chemical projectiles and basic energy weapons. They have no air support, no heavy armor, and no shield technology. Yet they refuse to surrender, Zelarn mused. Scan their settlement again. I want to understand what gives them confidence. Meanwhile, in the colony's maintenance tunnels beneath the main settlement, Torres was addressing a gathering of volunteers. The cramped space was filled with farmers, engineers, teachers, and shop workers, people who had come to Kepler 442 be seeking peace, not war. But their faces showed the same determination that had driven them to leave Earth and build a new world. I won't lie to you, Torres said. We're outgunned, outnumbered, and outclassed technologically. In any fair fight, we lose. So we're not going to fight fair. Sarah raised her hand. What exactly are you proposing, Sergeant? Torres activated a holographic display showing the settlement layout. The Zephyrians have made several assumptions about us. First, they assume we'll fight like they do, formation against formation, technology against technology. Second, they assume we value our lives more than our freedom. Third, they assume they understand human psychology because they've observed our communications and technology. Dr. Martinez nodded slowly. But they haven't studied human history. Exactly, document. They don't know about the Warsaw Ghetto or Stalingrad or Thermopylae. They don't understand that humans have a very particular response to being told they can't have something that's theirs. Torres highlighted various sections of the settlement. They want this planet intact, which means they can't just bomb us from orbit. They have to come down here and dig us out personally. When they do, they're going to learn about urban warfare, human style. The plan Torres outlined was audacious in its simplicity. The colonists would turn their own settlement into a maze of death traps, using their intimate knowledge of every tunnel, service corridor, and maintenance shaft. The aliens would have superior weapons and armor, but they would be fighting in an environment designed and controlled by humans. The agricultural domes can be flooded with methane from the bioprocessors, explained Chief Engineer Nakamura. The Zephyrians breathe an oxygen-nitrogen mix similar to ours. Methane will be toxic to them. The school has been converted into a medical station, added Mrs. Patterson. We've stocked it with supplies and connected it to the tunnel system through the old maintenance access. Sarah had volunteered to coordinate the civilian evacuation routes. We've identified 14 separate escape paths through the geological survey tunnels. If sections of the settlement become untenable, we can relocate and continue fighting from new positions. Above ground, the Zephyrian fleet had moved closer, their ships now hovering barely a kilometer above the settlement. Zelarn was growing impatient with the humans' continued defiance. Open a channel to the human commander, he ordered. Torres responded from his position in the colony's reinforced communications bunker. This is Torres. Human, my patience is exhausted. We are prepared to begin ground operations to remove your people. This is your final opportunity to surrender. Commander, I have a question for you. In all your conquests, how many species have you faced who are fighting for their homes? Zelarn paused. What relevance does this have? Just curious. Because in my experience, there's a significant difference between fighting for territory and fighting for home. Territory is strategic. Home is personal. Your philosophy is irrelevant. We are landing our assault forces. Understood, sir. One more thing, though. Have you ever heard the human saying, "Welcome to hell"? The first Zephyrian drop ships began descending toward the settlement's main plaza. The aliens had chosen what appeared to be the optimal landing zone. Open ground with clear fields of fire and direct access to the colony's administrative center. It seemed like a textbook military operation. Torres watched from the command bunker as the alien troops deployed. They moved with professional efficiency, their powered armor gleaming in the afternoon sun. Each soldier was nearly 3 meters tall and carried weapons that could probably level a building. There were 200 of them in the first wave. All units, remember the plan? Torres spoke into his communicator. Let them come to us. The Zephyrians advanced toward the settlement in perfect formation, their sensors detecting no active resistance. The human buildings seemed abandoned, with no signs of defensive positions or weapons emplacements. It appeared the humans had finally recognized the futility of resistance. They were about to learn that sometimes the absence of visible resistance was the most dangerous sign of all. As the aliens reached the first row of residential buildings, Torres smiled grimly and spoke into his communicator. Welcome to New Harmony, boys. Now let's show them what human hospitality looks like. Hashtag the lesson begins. The first indication that something was wrong came when Zephyrian assault leader Kravex stepped on what appeared to be solid ground and immediately sank ankle-deep into a concealed pit lined with sharpened metal stakes. His powered armor protected him from injury, but the psychological impact was immediate. The humans had prepared. Advance with caution, Kravex commanded his squad. Scan for additional traps. But scanning was precisely what the humans had anticipated. Chief Engineer Nakamura had spent the previous day placing sensor decoys throughout the settlement. Small devices that mimicked human life signs while concealing the actual positions of the defenders. The Zephyrian sensors were sophisticated, but they were designed to detect technology similar to their own, not the improvised chaos of human ingenuity. In the residential sector, the alien soldiers advanced through what appeared to be abandoned streets. The building showed no signs of defensive preparations, no weapons emplacements, no obvious threats. Yet every few meters, something went wrong. Motion sensors triggered bursts of pressurized steam from modified heating systems. Carefully placed mirrors and reflective surfaces created false targeting data for their weapon systems. Even the simple act of opening a door became a gamble, as some were rigged to collapse ceiling tiles while others released clouds of flour that interfered with their optical systems. Torres watched the alien advance from his position in the command bunker, coordinating the defense through a network of fiber optic cables that ran through the colony's foundation. The humans weren't trying to win a conventional battle. They were teaching the Zephyrians that taking human territory would be expensive, time-consuming, and deeply unpleasant. Sarah, how are your people doing in Sector 7? Torres spoke into his communicator. Sarah's voice crackled back from her position in the agricultural dome. We've got 12 aliens trying to advance through the hydroponics lab. They're having trouble with the irrigation system. Dr. Martinez had done something brilliant with the agricultural systems. The entire hydroponics facility had been converted into a maze of misty passages filled with earth-grown plants that triggered allergic reactions in the Zephyrian respiratory systems. The aliens found themselves sneezing, coughing, and struggling to maintain combat effectiveness while navigating through a jungle that seemed designed specifically to torment them. Commander Zelarn monitored the battle from his ship, growing increasingly frustrated. His forces had technological superiority, but they were advancing at a crawl. Every building had to be cleared carefully, every room searched for hidden defenders and booby traps. What should have been a simple occupation was becoming a grinding urban nightmare. Assault Leader Kravex, report, Zelarn demanded. Commander, the humans are not fighting conventionally. They appear to have abandoned most of the settlement, but they have prepared extensive defensive obstacles. Our advance is slow, but steady. Casualties? No fatalities, sir, but 17 soldiers are reporting equipment malfunctions, respiratory distress, and disorientation. The humans have weaponized their own infrastructure. In Sector 4, a squad of Zephyrian soldiers attempted to clear the colony's workshop complex. The buildings appeared empty, but as they moved through the facility, they encountered a series of increasingly bizarre obstacles. Tool lathes had been rigged to activate when doors opened, filling corridors with flying metal shavings. Welding tanks had been converted into improvised flashbang devices. Even the simple act of walking became treacherous as the humans had removed random floor panels and replaced them with carefully balanced sheets that would collapse under the weight of alien soldiers. Mrs. Patterson coordinated the psychological warfare from her position in the school's basement. The colony's public address system had been rewired to create an omnipresent soundtrack of human voices, sometimes singing, sometimes laughing, sometimes whispering threats in perfect Zephyrian language that Dr. Martinez had quickly learned from their intercepted communications. Your technology cannot protect you from human creativity, the speakers announced in harmonic Zephyrian speech. Every step you take, every breath you draw, every moment you remain on our world, you are in our power. The effect on the alien soldiers was profound. They had been trained for conventional warfare against predictable enemies. This was something else entirely, a form of combat that attacked their morale and psychology as much as their tactical positions. In the colony's power plant, Chief Engineer Nakamura had prepared his masterpiece. As the Zephyrian assault team approached the facility, they detected massive energy readings that suggested humans were preparing some kind of weapon. In reality, Nakamura had simply rerouted the colony's entire power grid through the plant's main reactor, creating an enormous electromagnetic signature that would appear threatening on alien sensors. When the Zephyrians finally breached the power plant, they found Nakamura calmly sitting at a control console, his hand resting on what appeared to be a dead man's switch connected to the reactor. "Gentlemen," Nakamura said politely in their language, "welcome to human engineering. This facility powers our entire settlement. If you harm any human in this colony, I will overload the reactor and take you with me. Your choice." It was a complete bluff. The reactor had multiple safety systems that would prevent such an overload. But the Zephyrians didn't know human technology well enough to call his bluff. Kravex contacted his commander. "Sir, the humans appear to be willing to destroy their own infrastructure rather than surrender it intact." Zelarn felt a cold realization creeping through his thoughts. The humans weren't fighting to win in any conventional sense. They were fighting to make victory meaningless. Even if the Zephyrians eventually cleared the settlement, they would inherit a damaged, booby-trapped wasteland rather than the pristine colony they had coveted. And this was only the first settlement. The humans had hinted at other colonies, other worlds where their species had taken root. If every human world fought like this. For the first time in his career, Zelarn began to understand that some prizes might not be worth their cost. The cost of understanding 6 hours into the assault, Commander Zelarn faced an unprecedented situation. His forces had technically secured 60% of the human settlement, but at a cost he had never anticipated. No Zephyrian soldiers had been killed, but 47 were suffering from various ailments ranging from respiratory distress to equipment failures to what their medics were calling stress-induced disorientation. More troubling was the realization that the humans were still fighting. Every cleared building had to be constantly monitored, as the defenders seemed to materialize from nowhere to reoccupy positions that had been declared secure. The human tunnel system was far more extensive than their surface scans had revealed, and the colonists were using it to wage a war of constant harassment. In a command bunker, Torres was coordinating what he privately called the final lesson. The humans had demonstrated their ability to make the aliens' life miserable, but now came the real test. It was time to show the Zephyrians what humans were truly capable of when cornered. "All units, prepare for Phase 3, Torres announced. Sarah had been waiting in the agricultural dome for this moment. As Zephyrian soldiers attempted to secure the facility, she triggered the final surprise Nakamura had prepared. The dome's atmospheric controls activated, flooding the enclosed space with a mixture of earth plant pollens and harmless but disorienting gases. The aliens found themselves in a dense, yellow fog that interfered with their sensors while triggering massive sneezing fits. But the real shock came when the colonists finally revealed themselves. Dr. Martinez emerged from concealment in the research laboratory, but she wasn't alone. Over the past hours, she had been working frantically to reverse engineer the aliens' own equipment using fragments recovered from their landing craft. In her hands was a weapon that looked distinctly Zephyrian, but had been modified with human ingenuity. "Surrender your weapons," she announced to the startled alien squad in perfect Zephyrian language. The sight of a human wielding alien technology with obvious competence sent shockwaves through the Zephyrian force. Their technological superiority was supposed to be absolute. The idea that these primitive beings could adapt their equipment within hours was beyond their understanding. Assault leader Kravex found himself facing a tactical nightmare. The humans had not only prepared their settlement for defense, they were actively learning and adapting throughout the battle. Every piece of Zephyrian equipment left unattended for more than a few minutes seemed to disappear, only to reappear later in human hands, often modified in ways that made it more effective than the original. In the power plant, Nakamura had done something that should have been impossible. Using human engineering principles and salvaged alien components, he had created a hybrid reactor that was producing 30% more power than the original human design. The implications were staggering. "Commander," Kravex reported to Zilarn, "the humans are not simply resisting. They are improving. Their technology is advancing in real time as they study our equipment." Zilarn felt something he had never experienced in 3 centuries of conquest. Fear. Not fear of death or defeat, but fear of what this species represented. The Zephyrians had achieved their dominance through technological superiority maintained over millennia of careful advancement. The idea of a species that could match their progress in hours rather than centuries challenged everything they understood about galactic civilization. The final revelation came when Torres himself emerged from the command bunker. He was carrying what appeared to be a standard human communication device, but as he spoke, his words reached every Zephyrian soldier simultaneously through their own communication systems. "Commander Zilarn," Torres said, his voice carrying clearly across all alien frequencies. "I believe we need to talk." The fact that humans had not only cracked Zephyrian communication encryption, but had done so using their own primitive equipment was the breaking point. Zilarn realized he was not facing a primitive species to be conquered, but a dangerous unknown that could potentially threaten Zephyrian supremacy throughout the galaxy. "Human soldier," Zilarn responded, "state your terms." Torres smiled. "Simple, Commander. You leave. You tell your collective that human worlds are off limits. And you spread the word that humans don't surrender their homes. And if we refuse, then we continue this conversation across every world where humans have settled. Do you really want to fight house to house against a species that treats impossible odds as a personal challenge?" Zilarn considered his options. The colony could probably still be taken, but at tremendous cost, and with no guarantee that it would remain stable afterward. More importantly, the humans had demonstrated capabilities that made them a potential threat to the entire Zephyrian collective. Better to withdraw now than risk a larger confrontation with an unknown quantity. "Withdraw to minimum safe distance," Zilarn ordered his forces. "Prepare for departure." As the Zephyrian ships began lifting away from New Harmony, Sarah joined Torres in the settlement's central plaza. Around them, colonists emerged from hiding places and tunnels, blinking in the afternoon sunlight. "Think they'll stay away?" Sarah asked. Torres watched the alien fleet disappearing into the sky. "For now, but they'll remember what happened here. Word will spread that humans are more dangerous than they appear." Dr. Martinez approached, still carrying the modified alien weapon. "Sergeant, I've been analyzing their technology. With what we've learned today, we could advance human science by decades." Torres nodded thoughtfully. "Then maybe this was exactly what we needed. A reminder that humans don't just survive when the odds are against us. We adapt, we innovate, and we come out stronger." The colony of New Harmony had successfully defended itself, but more importantly,